Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, it's a rare honor to be invited to speak here, and I really regard it as a great privilege. It's interesting to hear that in your bar you offer Cameron's concoction. I see no one's offering Miliband's mixture, and I expect Cameron's concoction would anyway be a lot more popular and make a lot more money for your bar. Can I just start by saying that, like some of you attending this debate today, I come from immigrant stock. And my parents' journey in this country, I suspect, mirrors that of the parents and grandparents of some of those here today. They worked hard, they were entrepreneurial, they gave something back to their community and to their adopted country. But it wasn't an easy journey, I can tell you. Because in the 70s, when my parents decided that they wanted to set up their own business, they were faced with a Labour government, which positively discouraged enterprise. A Labour government which presided over rampant inflation. Many millions of working days lost to strikes. Unemployment went up by almost 50% during the time of that Labour government. And this was, remember, we talk about finances and I'll come on to that, but this was a Labour government that went cap in hand to the IMF to bail out Britain. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, under that Labour government, Britain had become the sick man of Europe, and our public finances were left in absolute tatters. But actually what gave my parents hope, and hope to many others, and they persevered with this dream of setting up a business, was that emerging down the line, in the tunnel, there was a light. And this was a reforming Conservative government, which cut taxes, it encouraged enterprise, and it got the public finances under control. But above all, what actually spoke to my parents, and many, many people like them, was the message. And it was a new message. And it was a Conservative message. It was a message which Margaret Thatcher talked of. And that was aspiration. And I can tell you, one thing is abundantly clear, is that for those of us who are from immigrant backgrounds, or from the working class, or indeed anyone else, what we were told, that if you worked hard, in Britain, you could reach for the stars. And that is exactly what many of us did, and we did get there. And that was under the Conservatives. So I want to fast forward to 2010, and you wonder why I'm making this comparison, but let's look at the legacy that the Right Honourable Gentleman's government left us. It was a depressing Groundhog Day moment in history. The public finances in tatters once again. A record deficit. And we'll come on to who created that deficit, but I suspect that one thing that I will never hear from the Right Honourable Gentleman is an apology for the mess that Labour left this country in. We haven't heard it yet, and I suspect we never will. We also had rampant levels of employment, huge levels of youth unemployment. And the Right Honourable Gentleman talks about compassion. But there is nothing compassionate about 1 in 6 children growing up in workless households, the highest rate in Europe. That is what the last government left us with. And taxes went up, and the economy went into reverse gear, and we were a country standing on the edge of a financial abyss. And anyone who tells you otherwise has not looked at the facts. There was no golden legacy. The Right Honourable Gentleman has tried to paint this picture of a golden legacy under the last Labour government. Absolutely not. Of course, you will.
When it comes to this fact, the Honourable Member tell us how much the national debt has increased under this government.
I will happily do that. Yes, national debt has gone up, but the deficit has come down. It's edging down towards a half of what it was. And not many politicians understand the difference between debt and deficit. Really don't. I hope all of you do. You're all very bright people. But the only way that you will get the national debt down is first to eliminate the deficit. And that is exactly what this government is on its way to doing. So we talk about the deficit, but the one legacy of this last Labour government was this infamous note, and I have a copy of it here. It was left by the Labour Chief Secretary to the Treasury. And it says simply, "I'm afraid there is no money left." And then with cynical afterthought, because I don't think this is a matter of amusement, with cynical afterthought, he added, "Good luck." Is that compassionate government? I don't think so. And so when the coalition set about the very difficult task of getting the public finances in order, putting in place the policies to increase the jobs and grow the economy, we heard the siren voices as we're doing this evening. And no doubt you've heard it in this annual debate in the recent years. The right honourable gentleman and his friends cried out, "You're cutting too far, too fast. There'll be multiple dip recessions. Unemployment will soar." So after 4.5 years, I looked to the right honourable gentleman and to those on that side and asked him, what has happened after 4.5 years of coalition government? Employment is at record levels. Youth unemployment is down significantly. There are a record number of new apprenticeships. Business confidence is up. New businesses are being created. And yes, the deficit is on its way to being eliminated. Yeah. And of course, the UK is the fastest growing economy in the developed world, and it's predicted to be that over the next few years as well. But of course, those opposing the government, and we've heard some of this this evening, tell us that the increase in jobs is now some sort of mirage. These aren't real jobs, they argue. They aren't full-time jobs. They're largely low-paid, low-skilled jobs. Well, again, let's talk about the facts. The facts are something different. 3/4 of the rise in employment comes from full-time jobs. 2/3 of that rise comes from jobs which are in higher skilled occupations. And then we hear that actually under this government, living standards have fallen. And who is responsible for that? It was the people who presided over the worst recession in decades, the Labour Party. And I know from my own constituency how tough it's been for people, for individuals, for businesses during this downturn. Employees, I know businesses in my patch who've taken pay cuts rather than have businesses make people redundant. People have made sacrifices. But I tell you, the surest way to get living standards up and the way to increase prosperity is to create jobs and encourage business to invest. And that is exactly what the policies of the coalition are doing. We're cutting taxes, corporate taxes are down, edging towards the lowest in the G7, investment allowances are up, there's a range of help for small businesses, personal taxes are down, and of course, the right honourable gentleman talked about this top rate of tax. What he didn't tell you, that the top rate of tax when he was in government was at 40p for the vast majority of 13 years of the Labour government. It was only in the remaining, the dog days, the dying days of the Labour government that they put it up to 50%. So I don't want any lectures about taxes from him. And I tell you, when it comes to helping the lowest paid, what I'm really proud of is that the personal allowance, the amount of money that you can earn before you pay any income tax at all, has gone up by over 60% under this government. And I am really proud that a future Conservative government, I am a Conservative Member of Parliament, a future Conservative government is pledged to deliver a level of personal allowance where no one working on minimum wage for up to 30 hours a week will pay any income tax. And I want us to go further, much further. And of course, times have been tough, and this government has responded in freezing fuel duty and giving money to councils to freeze council tax and helping parents with the cost of childcare. But you know, none of this would have been possible without a long-term economic plan and without a vision for a prosperous Britain. And we talked about Sir Alan, the right honourable friend, mentioned the vision of Mr. Miliband and talking about people feeling sorry. Please don't feel sorry for Mr. Cameron. Let's feel sorry for Mr. Miliband. Quite frankly, he's got very few friends, and that's on the Labour side. And what is the vision that he offered? It was a vision of François Hollande's socialist utopia in France. And this is what an elated Ed Miliband said on Hollande's election. I congratulate Francis Hollande. What President Hollande is seeking to do in France and what he's seeking to do in leading the debate in Europe is find that different way forward. My goodness, he's certainly found a different way forward. And that's quite different from this coalition government. In France, we've got stagnating growth. unemployment is more than 10%, and the wealth creators are leaving Mr. Hollande's socialist paradise. And that is exactly what would happen if we had a Labour government in our country. So I say to you this evening, vote with your hearts and your minds. Vote with your hearts for aspiration, which is what this government has shown. And vote with your head on the facts about Britain's successful economy. Oppose this motion with every sinew in your body.